Thanks for staying with us on The Real Story. We're talking with Connecticut-based Save the Children about the realities they're seeing in Gaza, Ukraine, and worldwide. Joining us to explain more of the aid organization's operations and their call for local involvement, Luciana Bonifacio, Chief Development Officer.
Thank you so much for joining us to chat about this. We really appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your interest in hearing more about the work we're doing in Gaza and humanitarian work in general.
Yeah, we know there's a lot going on globally right now. Obviously, as you mentioned, escalation in Gaza, but also in Ukraine, civil war in Sudan, the Congo, Yemen, many more places that are dealing with famine, refugee crises, and so much more. Just to start off, how busy has Save the Children been right now with so much need? Do you find operations stretched thin at all, or just how has it been?
Yeah, I mean, it's true. There's a lot happening right now. There's a lot of really big crises, Gaza, Ukraine, Sudan, but there's also all the other crises that don't even make the front line and they don't even make the news, right? So the team, yes, we're stretched. We also tell ourselves we prep for this. This is what we've been doing since the very beginning when Save the Children was established, right? Was responding to conflict. And so this is part of our DNA to be ready to respond whenever and however needed. We've also been very fortunate that some years back we established the Children's Emergency Fund, and that is a very unique platform that allows people to support the response before the crisis happens. And because we have that fund, we have the flexibility to come in and respond to crisis as soon as it happens without having to wait to fundraise for it. So that is amazing. It gives us an ability to be up and ready and going immediately.
And we know that a lot of these places we've mentioned are also places that, as you said, Save the Children has been operating in for years, in some cases even decades. And so sometimes we see escalation and forget, maybe the history or how long these regions have been struggling or in conflict. So even after conflict maybe ends, we know for people there's sometimes a fear of escalation again or picking up the pieces. When you're dealing with children in these situations, are you seeing some who sometimes have never experienced that stability?
We do have children in many areas that were born in internally displaced camps and that are still there, right? Like the length of conflict, the length of the impact of some of the situations has definitely extended. So for them to go back to regular society, if you will, regular schools, that has changed for many of them. So we've also had to adapt often our work to include different ways of providing education or providing opportunities for children to catch up on how will you then eventually find yourself into the schools in the communities that will become your new home if you're not able to go back to your country of origin, right? Because war may still be going on. So that changes. The need for mental health programs has changed a lot to provide that emotional support. Definitely there's a lot of how we've been responding to emergencies that continues and is the same. And there are things that have changed.
You mentioned mental health support. When we're talking about these long-term situations, you said, the length of these conflicts has sort of extended. So when we're talking about these places that Save the Children has been dealing in for a while, what are the supports and infrastructure that you find most important? I know you mentioned mental health care. I know for Save the Children, education is one. What are some of those resources that are most important in those situations?
I think providing children a sense of safety, that's what matters most, right? And so we can do that in a number of ways. There is mental health for sure, and we can do that sometimes in person. We also do that remotely. There are all kinds of ways to provide that support. It's also important to support their parents or their caregivers, so they are the ones that can provide the support, right? So working with the parent, the adult figure in their lives, that's always incredibly important. bringing children to school or some similar sense of school is important because it gives them that sense of normalcy. I get up, I go to school, I have some work I need to do, right? It's this sense of like more of a control of
Giving them a routine.
yes, there's a future, I'm interacting with other children, I'm having fun, right? So those are kind of some of the main aspects that are incredibly important. And then of course you have the health work. Just you need to make sure children are healthy to continue to survive and thrive.
And not just healthcare. We know a lot of these areas are also dealing with famine and just getting those basic resources and needs, food, water, shelter. What does Save the Children do in that area?
So we do a lot of that, like when it comes to a hunger situation in general, right? Like not just in Gaza, and I'm happy to talk about what we're doing there, but more broadly, everything from like access to basic food, whether it is there's something called plumpy nut, is this kind of like peanut butter paste that you provide to provide the basic nutrients, right? So from there, teaching parents to identify signs of hunger or malnutrition and can they address it, ensuring they have access to clean water, because if you are consuming dirty water, no matter what you eat, you may end up with other health issues that don't allow you to absorb any nutrients, right? So the response to a hunger situation is very complex, and we make sure that we're addressing all the elements that go around it. So the response is not just addressing the immediate issue of malnutrition, but ensuring they don't fall right back into it as soon as they are released back to their households.
And you mentioned the war in Gaza right now. I think for a lot of people, at least recently, this is one of the first times in a while that we've seen an up close look at just how difficult it is for organizations to provide aid in quickly changing conflicts. The humanitarian work is dangerous, as we've seen, and we've especially seen the trouble getting what's needed to the right places. Can you tell me a little bit more about what you're seeing in Gaza right now?
Yes, sure. So Save the Children has been supporting the needs of Palestinian children since 1953, and we've had a permanent presence since the 70s. So we have a long history working there, right? Of course, since October, the needs have changed, our presence has changed, and what we are doing has changed. We now have over 100 staff, and we're working also with 33 local organizations to coordinate our efforts. In terms of what we're doing, we have reached about 800,000 people, and we are doing everything from the very basics, access to water, food, shelter material, hygiene kits, all of that, but also more recently, we've been able to start delivering some of the health work that is so important. So we've distributed pallets of medical supplies to other organizations as well, but we've also deployed our emergency health unit. This is super important because it's bringing pediatricians that can work to address the specific needs of children in this conflict. And it can be from treating a minor injury to a critical illness. But more importantly, we now have a maternity ward. And over the past few weeks, we've been able to assist in the delivery of 6 babies. And that has been a moment of brightness in what's clearly a very dark time for children and families.
Absolutely, because we know that has been one of the biggest impacts is healthcare, and specifically healthcare, like you said, with delivery and things, specifically for children. We've seen a really lasting impact here just in these recent months, and something you all have been working on as well. We talked about mental health, the physical and psychological toll that this leaves far beyond the conflict for children. Can you speak to me a little bit more about that, how important this mental health aspect is?
I mean, mental health is incredibly important. I think we have to accept that for children who are going through like incredibly impossibly to comprehend moments, right? For them at this time, the impact is going to be long lasting, and we need to prioritize making sure that they will have or will have access to this kind of mental health support. I mean, there is a lot we want to be doing, and of course we need to adapt to the situation, the security, and what we're able to deliver at any given time. So it is one of the areas we want to ramp up more, and I expect we will be doing a lot more of that as soon as the situation allows.
We talked about, the span of Save the Children support globally. We know you all do so much here in the US as well. But, as people see what's going on social media, on the TV, what does getting involved or helping look like if people do want to, donate or be involved with Save the Children? What should they know?
Great. One, that we're grateful. So thank you to anybody that is considering engaging in any capacity. There are many ways to get involved. One is, of course, to just get familiar with the work we do, and going to our website is always a great resource for information about many, many topics. So that is savethechildren.org. Of course, we always welcome financial support. As I mentioned, the Children's Emergency Fund is absolutely phenomenal and has allowed us to respond to so many